His growls echoed down the cold concrete hallway like a warning no one dared ignore. Every shelter worker knew to steer clear of Cage 9. Inside sat a massive dog with scars running across his muzzle, eyes like storm clouds, and jaws that had once shattered metal. They called him Diesel, a name that fit the weight he carried in his silence. No one remembered who brought him in. No one had dared to touch him since. But something about the way he paced, slow and deliberate, told a story deeper than fear. On the third winter of his captivity, his barking suddenly stopped one night, silencing even the wind that usually howled through the cracked windows. That silence unsettled them more than the noise ever did. And then the child came, a toddler no older than 3, lost during a visit to the shelter, wandered past the office, down the dim corridor, and into the dark where Diesel lived. Time froze on the monitors. The staff sprinted. Hearts thundered. No one dared scream for fear the dog would be startled. The cameras showed the moment she stood before his cage, tiny fingers reaching through the rusted bars. Diesel didn't lunge. He didn't snarl. He lowered his head. The screen flickered as the girl giggled and pressed her hand to his muzzle. Then he licked her, just once, softly. That single moment rewrote everything they believed about the beast in Cage 9. And somewhere in that dim corridor, something gleamed in the dark. Hope. Snow fell softly on the small town nestled between 2 frozen hills, a place where winters clung to the earth like secrets. The shelter stood at the edge, a weather-beaten building with peeling paint and a roof patched more with hope than material. Inside, the cold reached even the bones of those who worked there. It wasn't just the temperature, it was the weight of what the place held. Lives in limbo, whimpers of forgotten animals. In the farthest corner of the building, the hallway darkened by a flickering bulb, Cage 9 sat cloaked in shadows. Diesel barely moved. His breath fogged the air around him, a silent rhythm of waiting. Each night, staff passed by quickly, never looking into his eyes. They said he was dangerous, that he'd attacked before, that he'd bite again. But no one really knew, except maybe for Ellie, the youngest volunteer. She was 17, gentle, and wore grief like a second skin. Her brother had passed 2 years ago, leaving behind only memories, and a dog collar that hung from her rearview mirror. She often found herself staring at Diesel, her eyes clouded with something too old for her age. She didn't speak to him, just watched. The snow piled higher outside as she stood at the threshold that evening, her hand brushing the doorframe. A single paw print, old, faded, was etched into the cement, catching the golden flicker of the shelter's emergency light. For a moment, her breath caught. Her hands shook as she peered out, wondering if maybe, just maybe, he wasn't what they all feared. Somewhere beneath the ice and silence, she sensed a shift, something stirring, and it started with a look. Ellie Winters had known loss in a way most kids her age hadn't. Her brother Max was everything she wasn't. Loud, fearless, adventurous. The kind of boy who would rescue a snake from the middle of the road just to show her it wasn't scary. When he died in a car accident at 19, Ellie stopped smiling. Their golden retriever, Buddy, wouldn't eat for days afterward. When Buddy passed 6 months later, Ellie felt like she'd lost Max all over again. That's what led her to the shelter. Not out of love for animals, but out of desperation to feel something again. Diesel wasn't what she expected. He was massive, dark-coated, and bore the kind of scars that told stories no one dared ask about. His file was practically blank. Found chained in an abandoned warehouse. No microchip, no history, just warnings. Ellie watched him for weeks from a distance. Every day, she walked the corridor with food and treats for the others, always lingering a little too long near Cage 9. Diesel never growled at her, never lunged, but his eyes, they held a sorrow she recognized in herself. One afternoon, as rain tapped on the tin roof and the wind howled against the windows, Ellie dropped a scarf while passing by. It slid under his cage. She froze. He stepped forward, slowly, no snarling, no barking, just a heavy, deliberate movement. His nose touched the scarf. Then he looked at her. She didn't move, didn't breathe. For a heartbeat, they weren't girl and beast. They were two souls, marooned by pain, connected by something silent and deep. She backed away slowly, but something had changed. In the coming days, she found herself pausing longer, talking softly. One day he sat as she spoke. Another, he whined when she left. And then came the child, the toddler with soft curls and wide eyes, who walked into the shelter on a rainy Saturday, lost from her distracted mother. Her laughter echoed down the hallway, and in that sound, something old in Diesel cracked. He stood, he watched, and when her hand reached through the bars, he didn't bite. He leaned in. Ellie, watching from the desk, felt her heart stop, and then start again. After the toddler incident, Diesel became more than a rumor. He asked a question. The staff couldn't ignore what they'd seen. The security footage made its way to the director. Some demanded he be moved. Others argued he'd shown progress. But Ellie saw a chance. She begged for supervised sessions. The director hesitated. "He's a risk," she was told. "So was I once," she replied. The first supervised session was tense. Diesel was led out of his cage with two handlers. Ellie stood across the yard, her hands shaking behind her back. The moment their eyes met, Diesel's ears lowered. He didn't bark, didn't pull. He simply stared. It was like he remembered, like he was waiting. Over the next weeks, Ellie worked with him under guidance. First, it was just sitting, then short walks, the light touches. He flinched at loud sounds, growled at sudden movements, but he never hurt her. She spoke gently, always, told him stories of her brother, of Buddy. Sometimes she felt like a ghost in her own life. Diesel listened. One morning, after a storm had knocked the power out, Ellie arrived to find the shelter in chaos. A break-in. 2 dogs are missing. The third injured. Diesel's cage was open. Panic set in. They feared the worst. Cameras showed the intruders cutting locks, but Diesel didn't flee. He chased them. The footage revealed him sprinting into the woods, shadows disappearing behind him. Ellie's heart dropped. The staff expected to find blood. Instead, they found tracks. Not just Diesel's, human ones too. And they led toward the ravine. Ellie followed them without hesitation. Through brambles, over rocks. Her flashlight flickered. The cold bit through her coat. But she kept moving. She found Diesel at the edge of the water, growling low at a man cornered against a rock wall, one of the intruders. The stolen dogs were behind him, shivering. Diesel didn't attack. He stood guard. When Ellie called his name, he turned, not like a wild animal but like a soldier reporting in. She broke down sobbing. Diesel had protected them all. He hadn't just changed, he had revealed who he truly was. Not a monster, a guardian. In the aftermath, things moved fast. The police arrested the man Diesel had cornered. The stolen dogs were returned. The shelter made headlines. Diesel was a hero. But more than that, he was proof that even the most broken stories could have redemptive endings. Ellie was offered the chance to adopt him. There were concerns, of course. Papers to sign, evaluations to pass. But no one could deny the bond they had formed. Diesel walked beside her now, not behind. When they went out, people crossed the street to avoid him, until they saw how gently he watched over the neighborhood children. How he nudged Ellie's elbow when she forgot to eat. How he growled at no one anymore. Ellie's room, once filled with silence, now held the soft sounds of breathing, of paws shifting, of a heart beating beside her own. On the anniversary of Max's death, she sat beside Diesel under a silver sky, placing a photo on the grass. "He would have loved you," she whispered. Diesel leaned into her, tail gently sweeping the leaves. In his eyes, there were no shadows, just light. The girl who once couldn't speak without breaking now laughed, played, dreamed. Diesel ran across fields he once only saw in sleep. His scars didn't fade, but they no longer defined him. He had found his human. She had found her reason. Together, they rewrote the ending. Time passed as it always does. Ellie went off to college nearby, majoring in animal behavior. Diesel, older now, moved a little slower, but his spirit never dimmed. He became a regular at campus events, adored by students who once feared his kind. Ellie started a blog, From Cage 9 to Courage, sharing their journey. It went viral. Donations poured into the shelter. More dogs found homes. And on quiet evenings, Ellie still sat on the porch with Diesel, his head in her lap. She didn't cry anymore, not like before. She remembered Max with laughter now, not just tears, because grief had carved space for healing, for love, for Diesel. One spring morning, a neighbor's daughter toddled up to Diesel in the park, tiny hands reaching, just like before. He bent his head, let her pet his ears, and watched her with calm eyes. Ellie smiled, whole again. The vicious dog they once feared had become a legend, not for what he'd done, but for what he overcame. They'd found each other, and that was enough. What would you have done if you saw a child walking toward a dog like Diesel? Would you have screamed or waited? Stories like Ellie and Diesel's remind us that sometimes second chances come wrapped in fur and silence. If you believe every dog deserves a chance to be seen for who they are, drop it in the comments. Tell us, have you ever met an animal who changed your life? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more heartwarming stories, and share it with someone who needs hope today, because someone out there is waiting for their Diesel, and your share might be the reason they find them.